She always gave him a few dollars, but one day he simply disappeared. 14 years later, they met again. Hello everybody, someone once said that a chance encounter is the least accidental thing in the world, and it's probably true sometimes. Fate brings us together with very different and even random people who make a great impact on our lives without even noticing. And we most likely make such an impact on other people's lives as well. After all, even a simple word which we might not even pay attention to can sometimes completely change a person. This story is great proof of that. Gina Miller works as a paramedic in California. She dreamed of this profession her whole life, but 15 years ago, when she was still a young woman just out of college, she served in the police force. That's when an interesting incident happened to her, which she remembered very well. It was the fall of 2005. Young Gina had just started her service and has been working for more than a month. Her task was to patrol the city park, a relatively crowded but quiet territory. Once, when she was walking by a small lake, she stumbled upon a drifter. He was going through garbage cans looking for something to eat. Gina has seen this poor man before, but only now decided to approach him. In her soft voice, she asked the man how long he's been living on the street, but seeing a woman in the uniform, the man quickly began to apologize. "I'm sorry, I'm already leaving." It was expected behavior at the sight of a policeman, but Gina calmed him down, saying, "You have nothing to be afraid of. I won't do you any harm." One thing led to another and they began talking. And a little later, the homeless man shared his story. It turned out that his name was Will, and he's been living on the street for over 10 years. He used to have a job, his own house, and even plans for the future. He wanted to have children. The sad part of the story began when his beloved wife died of cancer. The man couldn't get over his loss and began to use illegal substances to escape reality. He knew what he was doing, and it was his way of protesting the injustice of life. He soon was out of a job and consequently a home, and then he was on the streets. Gina was touched by the homeless man's story and decided to take a risky step. That same evening, she bought clothes and shoes for the man, which she bought at the thrift shop, as well as a hot meal which made the man's eyes light up. The next day, Gina gave him $10 so he could recover his documents. This way he could find a job and change his lifestyle faster. She knew it was too risky. After all, the man could give in and spend this money on the next dose or alcohol, but something inside her kept saying she was doing the right thing. She also helped him into a help center for the homeless, and even made Will promise her that he will spend the $10 on documents and nothing else at that time. The woman started having problems at work, and since she didn't have any friends besides Will, she began to see more often. They could talk for hours, and Gina began to notice how little was changing. It went on for about a month, and Gina sincerely believed that she was doing good. But one day, Will didn't show up at their spot. He didn't show up the next day either. Gina came by a few times expecting to see Will, but he was never there. And when she visited the help center where she arranged Will to get help, she learned that he hasn't been there for a couple of days either. Gina felt cheated. She believed this man and that she'd be able to change his life for better, but now she realized that she was wrong. Gina lived for the next 15 years with this feeling she didn't even know if he was alive or what happened to him. Soon after Will disappeared, the woman quit the police force and went after her dream. She became a paramedic, got married, and moved to a different city. Sure, sometimes she thought of the times when she was young, inexperienced, and smiled. Almost 15 years went by, and she most likely would have kept thinking that she didn't change the man's life. But October 25th of 2019 became a special day for her. Gina stopped at a gas station, and while she was paying at the register, she noticed out of the corner of her eye that a man was watching her closely when she was about to leave the store. He blocked away. At first, Gina thought the man was crazy, but he looked straight in her eyes and asks, "Do you remember me?" He immediately began crying. The woman froze for a few seconds and realized it really was Will. As it turned out, he kept his promise. He did recover his documents and got a job at a construction site, which is exactly why he couldn't come. His schedule was so tight that he simply didn't have the time. A few weeks later, he came by the park, but he never saw Gina again. Sometime later, he got promoted at his job and moved to a different city where he met his future wife, who helped find God. Now he attends church every Sunday. Will found his happiness. He tried locating Gina, but it is incredible how fate has brought them together again 15 years later and hundreds of kilometers away from where they first met that day at the gas station. Two adults cried like children and were not embarrassed to show their feelings because their seemingly chance encounter was not accidental at all. Gina told this story on the Facebook page. "We cried a long time looking at each other before we asked the sort of boy to take a picture of." She wanted to share the story because this was very important. Don't be afraid to be kind. Even if you've been wronged, someone will always be kind to you. I sincerely believe the kind people are the majority. Like this video and share it with your friends, and we'll see you next time.